Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today in this video I am going to discuss about the parallel execution, or in other words I can say that today we are going to discuss how does the parallel activity work in a step-by-step manner, so we all can understand what is this parallel execution. Before continuing to the topic, in case you are coming to the channel for the first time and you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel to see more of such videos. Having said that, let's jump to the topic of parallel execution, right? So if I have to give you an overview of parallel execution, right, there is something which is called the asynchronous activities in UiPath Studio, right, which means that we have some activities in UiPath that allow us to have the parallel execution of activities. Now, what do I mean by parallel activities? It simply means that I want to do 2 or the 3 tasks which are independent of one another, right? And I do not want to waste my automation time by just waiting for something or some action, right? So these activities, the asynchronous activities, allow us to run the task independently, reducing the waiting time and increasing the automation efficiency. Right, so here I have given a real-time example which all of us can relate. So imagine you have to do a lot of work for a day, right? You have to wash the dishes, you have to sweep the floor, and you have to make your bed. So normally you would like to do one task at a time, like first you would like to wash the dishes, then the sweeping, and then finally making your bed, right? So this is a synchronous or a sequential approach, which means that before you jump to the next task, you make sure that the first task is completed, right? So this is an example of synchronous. But now let's think about the asynchronous activity, where instead of doing one task at a time, you decide to wash the dishes while your friend sweeps the floor, and then there is another friend who makes the bed. So each person is doing their task independently without waiting for the others to finish. So the first example was the sequential or the synchronous, where the next task would start only when the first task is completed. However, if I say that the same 3 tasks has to be done asynchronous, I would have my friends waiting for me so that all the tasks are happening independently. Okay, so in UiPath Studio, asynchronous activity works in a similar way. These allow different tasks or activities to run independently, just like your friends are doing helping your course. Same like the automation will start one task and simultaneously it can do the other task without waiting for the first to complete. Now to give an example, let's say you are automating and where the robot is fetching a data from a website. Now when I was downloading the data, the robot is taking, let's say, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Now at the same time, the robot is free, so it can do some other task, maybe just write the data in the background or copy some data from a API and paste it in an Excel, right? So that means the automation does not have to wait for some specific thing. What would happen? It would reduce the waiting time, and it will help the automation to move faster. Okay, so this is an overview of the asynchronous activities, or I would say how does the parallel execution works. Now let's talk more technically and see which all activities we have available in UiPath and how we can utilize all of them. In UiPath, I have an activity. The name of the activity is called the parallel activity. Now, what exactly is the parallel activity? The parallel activity is a workflow design that allows simultaneous execution of multiple independent tasks. Okay, this is important. Independent task within a workflow. It acts as a container facilitating the coordinated and the concurrent execution, right? So parallel activity is a container where you have to put your activities which you want to run in parallel. Okay, so in UiPath Studio, the parallel activity is found in activity panel under workflow control, and you would have parallel. We are going to see in a demo. The parallel activity finishes only after all the child activities are complete or its completion condition properly evaluates to true, right? So If you are using parallel activities in your automation, you have to make sure of the statement that the parallel activity finishes only after all the child activities are complete or the completion condition property is set to true. Now you might be thinking why it is important. As we have already discussed, the parallel allow you to do the task at the same time without waiting for the other one. Where exactly can you use it? It's ideal for the scenario which involves multitasking, handling multiple events simultaneously. For example, you have a requirement where you have to monitor multiple folders in a system, like say 10 folders, and you want to make sure that if first folder has some change, do this. If second folder has some change, do this. If third folder has something, do this, right? So that's where you can use this. To give you more examples, what should be the ideal use case of having the parallel activity? This can be one. Data retrieval and processing, where you are fetching the data from multiple sources like API, right? You can use the parallel activities. File operations, when performing operations like copying, moving, deleting files in the bulk, which you give the command and it is taking some time, I can utilize the parallel execution. Web scraping, right? I'm scraping data from the website. I clicked on the download button. It is taking 5 minutes. In those 5 minutes, I can do something else of the automation. Database operation, as we have seen in the database automation series, right? All of these database automation related activities happen in the background, right? You do not need to be necessarily present on the screen. So that means that in that time, I can utilize the automation to do something else, right? Which reminds me of something. In case you are new to database automation and you want to get started, I have this dedicated playlist where I'm explaining all the database related right from scratch, with guiding you on how do you install the SQL Server as well. Okay, we can do API integration, long running workflows which is taking some time. You are making some complex calculation, there is some large data transformation happening. So all of this you can use the parallel processing, right? I'll take this, I'll keep this here. You guys can just take a screenshot, read it through it, pause the video, and that will give you some idea that how you can utilize the parallel activity. Okay, so this is all about the theoretical concepts. Let's now jump back to our UiPath Studio and see this in action. So I'm back into my UiPath Studio. I'll go to the design and I'll create a new sequence. I'll call this sequence as parallel execution and I'll create it. Okay, so this is my sequence where we are going to have the parallel execution. I'll go to the activities and I'll search here parallel, and as we can see, it's available inside the workflow control, and then you have something which is called the parallel. If I keep my mouse, you can see it says that executes the child activity asynchronous in parallel, and it's included in the default package. Drag and drop it here and you should have the parallel activity, which is a container. And now here I can drag and drop the activities. Okay, so let's define a use case. For this demo, what I have done is I have created a folder in my d:\data, and then I have something which is called parallel sample files. So what I have got here is I have got 9 of the notepad files, and let's say I have to write an automation where I have to read all of these 9 files from this folder, right? So how would you approach to these scenarios? So typically I'll go to the activities and I'll take something which is called a sequence. Okay, and this is now nothing to do with the parallel, right? So I'll go here and I'll say in this I can just drag a sequence, right? And I have to read all this notepad files, so I can use the read text file activity and read the content. However, for this demo, let's try to make it simple, and I'll just use a log message activity and I'll say that, hey, I am reading this file. Okay, so I'll just put an information level log and I'll say here reading the file. Okay, and then I'll just print the path of the file, right? So we can use path dot get file name, and I'll pass the complete path of this one, which is the file one. Copy as path, go back, see what I'm giving. So I'm just writing a log message where I'm saying that, hey, I am going to read this file name, right? So let's say this is an automation where you are reading the file, and the same we have to do for all the files, which are 9 files, right? So 2, 3, 4 5 6 7 8 9, right? So I'll just go and update this. So this is still a sequence, right? It is nothing to do with the parallel, but we have to make it so that we understand that how does this happen, right? So this would be my 3, this guy would be now 4, okay, this guy would be file number 5, right, file number 6, file number 7, file number 8, okay, and then I say that this is my file number 9, okay. So if I save this, I go here and I say run the file, right? In the output I should be able to see all the file names because it's just a sequence, right? I have nothing to do with the parallel. So we'll just wait for this completion, and in the output you can see reading the file 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 because that's what we have written, right? So this is our one piece of automation which is already in my parallel. So if I even move it out of this parallel execution, this will still work, right? So I'll call this sequence as reading the notepads, okay. Now let's say I have one other automation or one other piece of automation. I'll call it as a sequence where we are doing some task, right? It can be the task which are asynchronous and has nothing in common, which has no dependency, in other words, right? So I will say that, hey, this is another task where we are doing the task A, okay, and then I'll just repeat this task B, then I say task C, and then I say task number D, okay. So now if you see, this is also a sequence where all the activities are happening one by one, task A, B, C, D, and this is a sequence, the second sequence in the parallel, which I am saying that these are my tasks which I need to perform, right? So here we are reading the notepads, here we are doing all the tasks. If I save this, if I go here and I say run the file, okay, I want to build this automation in a step-by-step manner so that you all can see how this activity behaves, right? It might take some time, but trust me, you would have your concepts clear. So now if I go to the output, reading the file 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and then the task A, task B, task C, and task D. I have 4 tasks which are in the second one, right? Now you might be thinking, Mukesh, what is the difference of using this and this, right? It is executing this and this executing this, right? We'll come to that point. Now let's say you have a third task where you are doing something else. So I'll print a new sequence, and here I would say that, let's say here we are displaying the time, okay, and in here I'll again use a log message activity, drag and drop it here, okay, and here the idea would be simple. I would just print the milliseconds, right, because it's working very fast, so we would be able to see if I use the milliseconds. So how do you get the milliseconds? You just write now, which is the date time variable, and then you print here milliseconds. So if you write now dot milliseconds, this will give you the first time, right? And I'll just make a copy of this, and then I'll say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, right? So I have put 10 of the milliseconds activity, right? So now I have 3 tasks which are working in parallel, 1 2 and 3. Now as soon as I put the third one, let me also show you the output. Run the file, okay, and if I go to the output now, you would notice that first task reading the file, 4 task, and then these are the milliseconds: 63 67 69 71 72 74 76 and 78, right? So these are the milliseconds, that's why you are able to see the gap, right? Now what is so special about this task, right? So the first thing here you notice here is that there is no dependencies in these tasks, right? So they are able to execute simultaneously. But you would think that, hey Mukesh, I do not see this happening simultaneously, right? What exactly is the benefit and how is the robot working? But now think of a situation, right? You were reading the notepad, okay, and while the robot was reading these notepads, I'll collapse everything. 1, 2, 3 notepad went perfectly, and after the robot was reading the third, it got some delay, which means that it took some extra time, let's say 5 seconds, right? So here what has happened, the robot read the first, second, third, and while it was processing the third one, it got into some delay, which means that it is taking some time to complete this activity and go to the this one. Now let's see what happens. So previously when this delay was not there, this was our output, right? So this was our output. So what I'll do is I'll just take a snipping tool, right? And I'll just take a screenshot so that we guys can compare. Okay. So this is my actual output when it was all fine, right? First task, the second task, and the third task. Okay, I'll minimize this, and now what happened, I have just went here and I put a delay after the third notepad file. So if I go here and I say run the file, okay, now let's see what happens. Automation started. Okay, and we'll wait for the automation to complete, and then we'll go to the output. Now if you see the output, reading the file 1, and if I pull this out here, you guys can see, now we can compare. So in the previous execution, all the files 1, 2, 3, 4 executed till 9, but now with the new one, what is happening, file 1, file 2, file 3, and after file 3 it got into some delay, right? The robot was waiting for something to happen in the background, right, while it was reading the file. So rather than waiting for that 5 seconds, it went to the next branch, which is task A, B, C and D, and all these tasks completed successfully. There was no waiting. So then it went to the next one, which is the milliseconds 40, 41, 42, 43 and 54. And then when this completed, then it came back to the first one, and after 3 it went to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9, right? So that means that it didn't wasted the time in here 3, and then it didn't wasted the time. But now let's say I would not be using the parallel activity. What would have happened? It would read the first file, second file, third file, then the robot would wait for that delay to complete and then go to the next set of actions. But here it went into parallels, right? Now you might be thinking, Mukesh, let's try to put some delays in the task B and this and see what happens, right? That's what we are going to do next. So before that, I'll also, let me just take the screenshot of this output, right? So this is one when we only have the delay in the first one, right? So I'll just take this screenshot, right? So this is one where we have the delay after the third activity, which is here. Yeah, okay. Now let's try to introduce the same delay into our task. First task, second task, after the B, let's try to put a delay here. Okay, so after the second one, only the second one I put a delay, right? Let's save this, go here and run the file. Okay, now let's see what happens. So after the 3 activity, here is one, and here also I have put it after the second activity. So most of you might have guessed it correctly that yes, it should jump and forth, but let's see with an example. Okay, so I'll go to the output. 1 completed, 2 completed, 3 completed. Then it went to the task A and B, right? Previously this was our old output, right? If you can compare, there was no delay between the B and C here, right? There was no delay here, there was no delay. So that's why it went to A, B, C and then it came to D. However, in this new sequence I put a delay here, so immediately it found that, hey, I am getting some delay, I am taking some time, let me move to the new task, and it went to the milliseconds and executed all of them, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, then came back to this guy to complete this, and then it came back to this guy and completed this. Interesting, right? Now let's make it more interesting and put a delay after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, and I put a delay here. Okay, and let me just increase this delay to 10 seconds, right? Save this, and now you would see the delay is, one delay is here in the notepad in the task, and here after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So these are the delay, and the delay. Save this, go here, run the file, and we'll just wait for the execution. This time we have made additional delays, so it will take some 10-15 seconds. Okay, automation completed. Let's go back to the output now, and now if you notice, first file, second file, third file got into a delay, executed the task A and the task B, then went to the milliseconds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have introduced a delay there. So again there was a delay, so it came back to the previous one, which is the task C and the task D, right? Completed the task, then went to the file 4, file 5, 6, all of this it completed, and then again went back to complete that. So that's how it works, right? Now I want to show you one more interesting stuff here. So let me just take the screenshot of this one. New output. Okay, so this is happening because I have a delay which is put here, I have a delay which is put after task B, and I have a delay which is put after the 5th activity, right? But what happens if I put two delays in a workflow, right? So after the robot read A, B, C, I have a delay, D, E, and then I put one more delay, which means that if you see the old output, sorry, not ABC, it was 1, 2, 3, there was a delay after the 3. Now after 4 and 5 also I put a new delay here, right? So 1, 2, 3 I had a delay, now introduce a new delay here which is after the 5th one, which is this one. So previously all of them were executing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but now I introduced a new delay at this position also, the highlighted one, right? Now what should happen? I'll minimize this, I'll save this, go here and run the file. Okay, so this is a concept which you would understand if you try to create such example and clear your concepts, right? So I'm trying to give you all the possible scenarios. If you have something new, you can just ask in the comment box, or I would request you to try it yourself at your end. That will give you more clarity. Okay, so now in the output, let's compare it with the old one. Output, okay, and here it is. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, exactly the same. Task A, task B completed, then the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 completed here, right? And then I had introduced a new delay after the 4 and 5. So after 4 and 5, if you see here, previously, if you just keep it side by side, previously it was like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all of them executing one by one, but here I put a new delay. So that's why after 4 and 5 it now moved back to the task C and task D, right? Because it didn't want it to wait here, so it went back, completed D's task, and then came back to the previous one, right? So which means that in the parallel activity, the robot is not waiting for any specific task to complete, right? It is not waiting, it goes to the next one, see if all the actions are happening, well and good. If there is some delay or there is taking some time, jumps to the next one and completes them, and then jumps to the previous one, right? So that's how it works. Okay, now some of you might be thinking that, Mukesh, where you were reading these files one by one, right? Why don't you simply use a, I would say, a loop, or instead of printing these numbers one by one, why didn't you simply used a loop, right? So when I was doing this assignment, I also tried to do the same thing with the help of loop, right? So what I did is, I just want to show you this one as well. So I took an activity called for each and I use it in a new parallel like this. Okay, so I say that, hey, in the parallel activity I want to do it for all the files, and then I was introducing a delay inside this. However, if you closely monitor this complete is a one activity only. So once the robot insert this activity, once the robot is inside the for each, even there is a delay here, it won't jump to the other activity because this complete is one container which is highlighted in blue, right? So you cannot write an automation where you say that, hey, I have 10 files in the folder, that robot is working in a for each, right? And after the second file it got some exception, so the robot should go to the next one. It won't go. The reason for that, because this for each is one activity, right? It is asynchronous execution of the activities, one activity, two activity, and this is a single activity. So if you want to do something, that means that you need to have separate activities, right? Now you can write the code intelligently, right? So to make sure that you iterate it, pass the variable outside and do something, but the idea is simple. If you have a delay which is inside a loop, right, but the loop itself is a single activity, so for parallel for each, this is one activity, right? So once it is there, it is looking for the delay in that particular and not inside those activities, right? So just try this one and don't get confused in case you are using some kind of loops. Okay, so I'll minimize this. Does it really work in parallel, right? How can I make sure that it is really working in parallel, right? So what I'll do is, I'll quickly take a parallel activity, I'll drag and drop it here, and in the parallel activity I'll simply use a log message and let's print the time, right? Because we can print the time, so I can use an info level log and I'll say that this is my sequence number A. Okay, this is for sequence number A and I am printing the now dot milliseconds, right? This one I want to show you what exactly happens, right? So this is sequence number A, now dot milliseconds dot toString. Okay, so this is for your sequence number A. I'll copy this and see, now I cannot paste it in between. After this I cannot have a log message because this is a single activity, right? So that's why I have to put a sequence. Okay, I hope you guys understood that. Yes, this is only one activity you can put here, so I cannot put one more log message before after that, right? So if you want to have that, you need to put it in a sequence. Okay, so I'll copy paste this one, control C, 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5, right? So this is all my sequence A where I'm just printing the milliseconds. Sequence number A. Now if I go here and I say run the file, right, you would notice that it will execute all those activities one by one. The previous one I have commented, right? So this will print the actual time. I'll go to the output and you can see that 16, 26, 28, 30, 32 all in incremental, right? And I think it would be have printed the A, right? Now if I replicate the same thing, control C, control V, right, and I put it as B. Okay, and now we want to see that does it actually execute all of them parallel, right? That at the same millisecond the sequence A is also executing and at the same time sequence B is also executing. Let's try to find it out, right? You don't have to trust me, you have to do it yourself and then come to a conclusion, right? So this is my B. Okay, and for interest let's make it to C as well. So this is my sequence C Okay, so all the sequences I have just copy pasted the time milliseconds, right? So that this is my sequence C, and here let me just put only sequence number C, sequence number C, and here also I'll put sequence number C, and I'll remove this. Okay, so now I have 3 sequences in parallel where we are just printing the milliseconds, or in other words we are just printing the time, right? I'll minimize this. So I have 3 sequences. Let's go here and I'll simply say run the file. Automation completed. Let's go to the output and see what happened, right? 37, 48, 50, 51, 53, 55, 56, 58, 59, 61, 63, 66 and 68, which clearly means that all of these are not running parallelly, but they are working in a incremental left to right or top to bottom, right? Parallel execution means that you started with something on the A, you got some delay, it shift to the other one, right? The same concept will apply here as well. If I just go here, I put a delay, it will go to the other one and then come back, right? So this, whatever you are seeing on the screen, this is nothing but the actual time. So this means that this started at 237 milliseconds, 248 milliseconds, 250 milliseconds, right? So if you see, if it would have all executed at the same time, it would be something like A started at 237 and B also started at 237 and C also started at 237. However, what we are looking at is that the first it completes the A, then it completes B, and then it goes to the C. How it will go to A to B? If you occur some kind of delay, or it is taking some more time in the A, then it will go to B and then come back to the C, right? So that's the actual meaning of the parallel execution, right? It is not all starting at the same time, right? So I hope the concept is clear. Let's quickly go back to our presentation and see what we have there. I'm back to my presentation, right? So example use cases we have already seen. So now let's see what exactly we found out, right? So this is what we have done with the help of a real demo, and this is what is mentioned on the slide. So now if you go to the slides, you would actually make sense what I wanted to cover, right? So the parallel activity is a container with sequences, and these sequences execute based on the conditions. This execution approach, though may not be fully simultaneous, yet executes from top to bottom and left to right asynchronously, right? Which means that it has no dependency on one another, but it execute like this. Not all the parallel execution start at once, right? So this means that each successive activity only execute when the previously scheduled activity complete or goes idle, right? So in case if what is executing successfully, it completed the A, then it went to the B, and then it went to the C. In case there was a delay or some idle, then it shifted to B, and then here also then it shifted to the C, right? If none of the child activities of this activity go idle, this activity execute in the same way a sequence of activity goes based on a condition, right? If everything works well, as you see in this screenshot, A, B, C, the output is A, B and C. But in case you get some idleness or some delay, then it shifted to the parallel execution, right? So I hope this concept is clear, and in case you have any more doubts, you can write me in the comments. And if you guys understood the concept of parallel activity, please do comment parallel activity, so I also know that yes, we all are on the same page. Okay, so that is it I wanted to cover in the parallel activity. Let's have a quick recap that what we have covered today, right? So we have seen that parallel activity allows developer to create workflows that can execute multiple activities concurrently. This enables efficient parallel processing and can greatly enhance the performance of the complex workflow. You can just drag and drop activity into the parallel branches. These branches represent the separate threads of execution that can run simultaneously. But we have also seen that these are not the actual parallel execution. There is some delay, right? So each parallel branch operates independently of other, enabling the execution of the other activities concurrently without any dependencies. This is especially beneficial when dealing with the tasks that can be performed in parallel and do not rely on the outcome of the automation. The parallel activities also provide synchronization mechanism to coordinate with the execution of the activities across the parallel branches, right? So I hope that all is clear. If you have any more questions, any more doubts, feel free to write me in the comments, or you can also drop me an email as well. Okay, so that is all for this video. I would like to wrap this video here. I hope this was insightful. If you have any more questions, any more doubts, feel free to write me in the comments, or you can also drop me an email as well. I would appreciate your feedback on the video, and tell me in the comments what would be the next topic or next video you want to see. So with that, I would wrap this video here. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please do subscribe to the channel, and happy automation.